What's up? Welcome to the Beantown
Beatdown.
Matthew here.
Gabe here.
Yep, and got some drinks here. Oh, it's hot out here.
I know.
Yeah, I know. It's
hot like a sweaty motherfucker.
Yep, hotter than Taylor Swift's bedroom.
Oh, yep.
Alright, so we're doing our special countdown at UFC 200, which is this Saturday night live on pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
And this card is stacked. I mean, the preliminary fights on Fox Sports 1 and on UFC Fight Pass, and the main card on pay-per-view is stacked.
Yeah.
First and foremost, Travis Brown taking on Cain Velasquez. Two big heavyweights. And, of course, Travis Brown, Ronda Rousey's boyfriend.
Gotcha.
I think she'll. You think she'll be in the house that night?
I think she'd be in the house. Yeah, you wouldn't miss it. I mean, would you?
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
I mean, of course, she's probably. I mean, I know she'll probably be there to support her boyfriend.
Yeah,
and also because of the next matchup for the women's bantamweight title, Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes, and it should be a good fight. I think Amanda has the advantage on striking, grappling. They're both equal. And people have been saying that if Miesha Tate wins this fight, there's going to be a third fight with Ronda. I don't know what will happen, but we've seen in the past in the UFC where where fighters have come to the octagon and challenged a guy, the champion after a fight, especially at that time when George St. Pierre came into the cage and said to Matthews, "I am not impressed with your performance."
Gotcha.
So,
yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean, I think if Ronda is in the house, I think she might start a little brawl if Miesha wins.
That would be something to see here. That would be something to see.
Mm-hmm. Also, for the interim featherweight title, a rematch, years in the making. Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo. Aldo coming off losing the title to Conor McGregor, that 13-second knockout. Now fighting Frankie Edgar. It's been 5 years, and it is going to be a tremendous fight because the winner of this is gonna get a shot at the title. Of course, McGregor is fighting Diaz in August, and that should be an awesome featherweight fight. I think that fight will probably go the full 5 rounds.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And of course, the return of Brock Lesnar versus Mark Hunt. Classic grappler versus striker, Mark Hunt.
Right.
K1 kickboxing champion, the king of the walk-away knockouts. He just hits you with a knockout, and he just walks away like it's nothing. He just goes, BAM! He goes, okay, done.
Walk.
Yeah, and of course, with Brock Lesnar, I mean, I know all eyes are going to be on this fight, especially people from the WWE. Vince McMahon is going to be a nervous wreck. And of course, we got more on that fight later on in the show. And then, of course, the main event, the rematch, Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier 2. It's an awesome rematch. And it's funny because on my way here, I was on the train and I was talking to a teacher from Suffolk University. Her name is Amy. Hey, Amy, what's up? Because I told her about the show, told her to subscribe.
Okay, yeah.
And she says that in her hometown of New York, Rochester, she says that Jon Jones is from there.
Oh,
they
really?
They went to the same high school. I mean, of course, it was years apart. But, and she actually knows some friends of hers who know Jon Jones, too.
Fascinating. All right.
Yeah, so, I got John Jones winning this. I think he will beat Daniel Cormier again. He'll take on the winner of Glover Teixeira versus Anthony Johnson, and he'll beat him, whoever wins that fight, and then he's going to go up to heavyweight and take the heavyweight title. Yeah, it should be a good fight. I mean, especially the lead up into it. Like, during one interview, Daniel Cormier said, like, I am willing to die in order to defeat you. And John goes, okay, be ready. Make sure you're ready to do that. Wow.
Yeah. That's some. I would say that's some attitude, but it's also calm and collected, like you just showed. So.
Well, yeah. Well, let me ask you this: you being a fighter, well, you're not a fighter, but if you were a fighter, would you be willing to die for a world title?
That's a tough one. I mean, like we've talked about this before. I can't, the thing is, I can't conceive of that. I can't conceive of your reputation being on the line that much. Whereas I understand why fighters do it. I don't know. I can't conceive of that. So, I mean, maybe, but myself, probably not.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like Stallone said to Adrian in Rocky IV when he was about to fight Ivan Drago. He said, to beat me, he's got to be willing to kill me. In order for him to do that, he's got to be willing to die himself. So, I don't know. I mean, personally, I hope there's not a death in the UFC because this could mean some bad backlash, especially on a big epic event like this.
Yes.
UFC 200, but otherwise, I hope they go balls to the walls.
Right.
And now we're going to talk about our retrospective of UFC 200 because, you have 23 years and 200 UFCs. It's just amazing.
Right. That's got to be historic for you.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because it was on my birthday, November 12th, 1993. Back when it was no holds barred and bare knuckles and of course, I really didn't follow it as much. I couldn't quite understand it. I had a little, because I was kind of in my own world by that time. But I really started following it a little bit when I was into pro wrestling because of Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn. And then as I got older, I started getting a little more interested. And of course, in my junior year, I became a real fan. And then senior year, I became a huge fan, completely ditched pro wrestling, and been a fan of that sport ever since.
Gotcha. Yeah, and yeah, we were talking about this. It's just there's so much that has changed, since then. We're 1993. I mean, it's sometimes you think the 90s aren't that long ago, but like those of us our age, we were barely developed back then, and we grew up into it, and. So it actually has been a very long time, and culture has changed quite a bit since then.
Oh yeah, it does. It has changed a lot because the beginning of the sport, there was really little to no rules. It was bare knuckles. The only rules were no eye gouging and no biting, and then later on, no fish hooking. Fish hooking.
Yeah.
And it was also style versus style because there was always the talks in the bars and amongst people who did kind of a fighting sport, whether they did boxing or kickboxing or did karate or kung fu. It was always like who would win in a fight? Could a karate guy beat a wrestler? Can a boxer beat a taekwondo guy?
Right. So it must have been pretty exciting too to go across platforms, across formats, like you said. It was probably like we discussed on the show, which superhero could beat who. We discussed that whole phenomenon, but yeah, this must have been something kind of like that for people back in the 90s, like which style of fighter, like you said, could beat who.
Yeah, exactly, and the thing. And as it progressed, as it went along, we really figure out that there really is no best style. You know, it's like you need a mix of both.
Hmm. Hmm. Fascinating. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And that's that's something else that I've been thinking about. Like as an outsider, as someone who doesn't follow this, specifically the way you do, I was thinking like like it must be also that the idea of being willing to combine different styles that does seem kind of like the winning tack, and and you've been talking about like there are certain fighters that are only good at striking, they're only good at this and only good at that, but then that becomes like their downfall, and so uh, so yeah, like with Ronda Rousey, you said she didn't learn the endurance enough, and that was and Holly Holm was a lot better at endurance, and kind of took her down.
Well, the thing is like everybody knows a little bit of everything, but it's just that not everyone is equal. It's like Ronda's striking is not equal to Holly's,
Right.
and or like you know, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. I mean, but like the grapplers. There are some strikers out there who are good at grappling. They're good on defensive grappling. Like how to stop a takedown, how to roll out of a submission, and stuff like that.
Right.
Those are the type of people they can see a submission coming a mile away. But
how to be aggressive and make that happen themselves against their opponent is a different matter, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly, and plus, the type of fighters, has evolved too. It's evolved over so many years. It was like when it first started out, it was mostly martial artists and street fighters, and then when they started changing the rules, and then people started being more hybrid. It became a real sport of fighters. There were more fighters, and and now it's become a sport of athletes now because of the strength and conditioning that goes into it.
Yeah.
And now there are starting to become more fighters who have no background in any combat, any discipline. They just find a gym and they just get good at it.
Yeah. So that's interesting too. But yeah. Anyway, getting back to like the sort of general culture around it. That's changed quite a bit. We've talked about before a few times the whole Friends episode in '97. I think it was when that guy came in and guest starred.
Yeah, Tank Abbott.
Yeah, exactly. And then and they had the whole thing where it was Monica's rich boyfriend, on the side, decides he has to do UFC and goes out there and gets killed, but but yeah, that was like one of the first times where it was like kind of explained and brought in to like a wide mainstream audience, and at that time, like I said, like you had said before, the no fish hooking, I guess they had just added that or something. So.
Well, yeah, that was started by Tank Abbott. In fact, on Ultimate Tank Abbott, when Tank Abbott was, it's an old UFC video if you can find it. When they were talking about, they interviewed about it, and he said, yeah, you introduced the rule, and he said the rule. What was the first rule? But
so wait, as in there weren't any rules before, or what does he mean by that?
Well, yeah, like as if there were little to no rules before, and stuff. Yeah. But it really has, it really has changed. I mean, of course, it still went through the bad years when John McCain like tried to outlaw it, and then it went to a dark phase when they were only doing shows in like in the South and small arenas, small casinos, and they were only on Direct TV. If you didn't have Direct TV, then you couldn't watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's a whole other thing, trying to restrict access and relegate it, and we talked about when once it became legal in New York State, that opened up a huge thing, and that was
Well,
just this year, right?
well, yeah. This year they legalized it in New York, and but in the years before then, it took a while to get there. It
Mm-hmm.
took Zuffa buying the company and taking it to the next step with Dana White and the Fertitta brothers, the Ultimate Fighter reality show,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the stars like Randy Couture, Matt Hughes, George Roy St. Pierre, Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz. Those guys really did help the sport as
Mm-hmm.
well. Those fight whenever Tito fought or Chuck fought, it was all over Best Damn Sports Show.
Mm-hmm.
It was everywhere, and then new stars started coming in,
Right,
and
right.
now it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, So yeah, I mean, society has changed, culture has changed around it. I'd say it's become a lot more mainstream, and we've talked about how Ronda Rousey has helped with that. We've talked about how like certain other fighters can become really high profile, and and it changes it changes the outside culture and it changes the sport when that happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, but of course the thing is some people still consider it the sport of mixed martial arts too violent. I mean, I
Hmm.
guess it's either they've never seen it before,
Hmm.
um, you know, they don't have any education on it. They don't know that there's a training that goes into it and stuff like that, or it's they still have that mentality like it's back from the old days.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I got to admit, because coming at it from an outside perspective, that was hard to crack, and it's not because for some people it might be because of John McCain and those types back in the '90s, but I don't know. I think for me it was less. It was definitely less of that. It's not like I listened to those people, but it was kind of more like you don't actually know what goes into it, and so when you hear that it's no holds barred or less rules or whatever, your imagination like brings the worst, that type of thing. So I have become educated, talking with you about it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, in fact, during the Fourth of July. By the way, we were supposed to do this episode on the Fourth of July, and
Mhm.
then but of course it was a holiday and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And so, like on the Fourth of July, you were spending with your boyfriend, and there was a non-violent group
Hmm.
there, and you talked about it with this non-violent group. You talked about our show.
Yes, exactly. I did. So yeah, this group of people for radical change, for prison abolition, and such things, and yeah, we were having a beach party, and yeah, I brought were asking about different things I was into, and I was like, well, I do these two different talk shows, and so I brought up this whole thing, and it was really fascinating to talk about, with them. To I brought them in the way that I would hope to be brought in as an outsider, and like you said, they are basically nonviolent. So there's a very different tack you have to take when explaining this stuff. And so I talk about my segment of the show where I bring in more of the philosophy or the politics or the sci-fi elements, and also just that kind of explaining what you just said, that when you become uh, more educated about it, you know what actually goes into it, and and what the fans like you see in it, and really it's I guess what I would say now now that I'm thinking about it, what I would say is that it's about the less about the violence and the thrashing each other. It's more about the endurance.
Yeah, it's more about the endurance, and it's also about, and also from the martial arts perspective, seeing this. We've kind of seen this revolution of traditional martial artists getting more into it now because,
Right.
and actually, Eddie Bravo talked about this on Joe Rogan's Fight Companion for the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah.
He says that there were karate guys and taekwondo guys in mixed martial arts, but the thing was they were told not to do those flashy type of kicks. Because they say no, those kind of kicks they're not gonna work. Like you're gonna, because of also past experience of other UFC fighters who tried that.
Right.
But the thing was, they didn't have good ground game. They didn't have any good wrestling or jiu-jitsu or anything like that. And some of them didn't have good boxing technique.
Right.
And now, years later, we have with the Anderson Silvas, the Kung Lees, Lyoto Machida. Today, right now, with Sage Northcutt and, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, it's like now karate and taekwondo guys, they're flourishing in that.
Right.
In there.
Right, and that's fascinating too. In terms of, that's something I wish I had thought of when I was talking to this group. Because that's also something else I would mention is that the resurgence of traditional martial artists back into this also means that it brings the sort of wisdom, the sort of discipline that the traditional martial artists use as well. And and I like I told you, I took kickboxing classes, in college, and I did taekwondo and karate as a kid, and so I really appreciate and understand, more than like boxing and MMA. I really appreciate and understand the sort of discipline that goes into martial arts, and the real masters tell you to that you don't use this that often, that you use this when you need to, or you use this when in the real world you use this when you need to only, but when you do have like these fight offs at the dojo, it's like it's about the art of it, it's about the endurance and the technique.
Yeah. So like so you don't have like a guy standing in your face, yelling in your face and telling you that mercy is for the weak, right? Mercy is for the weak. Here on the streets, in the competition, an enemy deserves no mercy. No mercy is the strength. What are you looking at, Mr. Shamus? Yeah, that's the Karate Kid.
Yes. But yeah, anyway, so there really is a lot that could be said about it, and yeah, that's what I tried to do when I was out there at the beach on 4th of July.
Yeah, exactly. And also, one more other thing I wanted to say is because like it also gives an inspiration for guys in Taekwondo and karate, who are in those dojos trying to get their black belts. They can say, oh, well, those guys in Taekwondo and karate, they're fighting in mixed martial arts. We can do that too.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I'll say this: Taekwondo and karate, they're not the top best forms of striking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I would put boxing there at number 4, number 3 Taekwondo, number 2 karate, but number 1 is Muay Thai kickboxing because you get to use your knees. I mean, you get to use elbows, knees. You can clinch and you use your fists and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but there are some kicks from Taekwondo and karate that you can fuck guys up with. With spinning back kicks, spinning side kicks, and front kicks and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, and then I've also talked about Aikido. That's the other martial art that I took.
Aikido's not really looked upon in MMA. It
I'm
might
just
work in like self defense and stuff like that, but if
right.
you try that in the cage, a good jiu-jitsu guy will put you in an armbar and
Well,
snap it off.
I'm saying that a lot of the discipline and techniques from Aikido is actually used in defensive posture, and it's the whole idea of being able to use your enemy's weight against them, and to stay in your center and bring them off their center, and all of that. They might say it's from other martial arts, but that's actually from Aikido. So to confuse the situation and bring them down. I think Aikido actually is playing a part behind the scenes there in the cage.
Well, I know that Steven Seagal trained some fighters, but he's taken credit for for Lyoto Machida's crane kick and Anderson Silva's front kick to Vito Belfort.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only because Seagal is not just an Aikido guy. Because he also has a black belt in karate and judo.
Right.
But you'll never see an Aikido guy try to get in the cage and just use Aikido. Because if he does, he's gonna get fucked up.
Anyway, there's a lot that you can choose from, and like you said, some of the best people, sort of mix disciplines, and and try and become better at many different things. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's just evolved. For a while, the jiu-jitsu guys were dominating, then the wrestlers, and now it's been fully hybrid. Hybrid guys, and you see traditional martial artists getting in it now and having success.
Right.
It's the UFC really has come. Not just the UFC, but the whole sport of mixed martial arts has come a long way. And of course we got this event. We got the one in August with Diaz and McGregor too. September, Miocic and Alistair Overeem. That's also when CM Punk is making his debut.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, CM Punk is fighting on that card. And then, of course, the one in November, their first fight ever in New York in a long time. Fighting at the Garden on my birthday, by the way.
There you go. His birthday. My 30th, comes full circle.
Yeah, my 30th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, it really is. It really is amazing how far the UFC has come.
Yes,
exactly. And now, of course, we're getting into our special edition of Chew on This. And this is a good debate to have.
All right, wait a minute. So we also have to do my segment. So when are we going to do that?
Oh, okay, we can do that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we should do that and then figure out how much time we have left.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's 12:57 right now.
Okay. Anyway, so we're going to go into Macho Doesn't Mean That. So today I'm going to be talking about your words. Last time you mentioned the whole pen is mightier than the sword adage, and we debated that. So I think we've talked about politics here, even though we tried not to. And I think it's high time we talk about what the sort of power of words, and when it's good, when it's not. So this is also, speaking of the nonviolent group, this is kind of inverse of the violence is the words, and you have to mean what you say and say what you mean. That's something that I try and live by, and I've been working a lot more on that, because I think despite how much people try and brush it off, we're like I said, in politics, we actually try and move away from violence. And, even though some people have taken that the wrong way, in politics and society, in the arts, we try to move away from violence, and we try to make it, either in the arts, it's about visual aspects, and it's about ideas, and it's really about words as well. So I think that like learning, learning when to fight, when not to fight, learning when to say something, and when not to say something, and when to say something more extreme or less extreme is also just as important, and it's kind of along the same lines. So, like I said, mean what you say what you mean. If eventually, there's all sorts of examples in like movies and TV shows where.
Well, actually, I have one example.
Tell me.
You know that Uncle Kracker song, "Follow Me"?
Yes.
Yeah, some
Follow
people.
me.
Everything is alright. Yeah, I love that song.
Me too. Me too.
Well, for years there's kind of been this thing. They say that the song is about heroin.
Really?
Well, yeah, because of the.
I've heard certain things about the song, but I haven't heard
because
that.
like in the the lyrics, like in the first. The first verse, saying you don't know how you met me, you don't know why, you can't turn around and say goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
All you know is that when I'm with you, I make you free and swim through your veins like a fish in the sea.
I just realized that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because I personally think it's sort of a song about having an affair because it does sound like that, but but it could also be a song.
I was going to say that's the main thing I've heard is the affair because he says I don't care about the ring.
Yeah, but it could also mean a song about heroin too.
Anyway, so yeah, that is something. Trying to figure out what songs actually mean. That's actually huge in our culture, and we do it a lot. Carly Simon, You're So Vain. They've decades long debate about who that song's about and why she wrote it. Most people have concluded that it's one person, but I don't really know, and she has been very clear that she's not gonna tell us. And I think that happens a lot. There's a lot of different songs out there where it really is about someone's deep feelings, either for or against someone, and it's their own prerogative whether or not they're gonna tell the general public, and I think we should respect them if they say they're not going to tell us who it is. It's their right to express their feelings without having the story of their personal life ripped to shreds. So that's part of it. Is also choosing when not to say something is also just as important. And I think there's certain times in like a lot of television shows where the main character is kind of getting picked on, or like someone else says, "Oh, you should choose a side. It should be this or that." And anyway, the person just closes their mouth, says, "I'm not gonna talk about this anymore." And that might seem like they're kind of backing down or saying the other person's right, but I actually don't think so. I think that's actually a much more powerful move to say I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to go down to your level. So you can walk away thinking that that you've won just because I close my lips, but that's actually not what this means at all. So like for instance, there's some old man at the pharmacy. I'll use one of my personal examples. That he would always get one of the narcotic medications, and we finally realized that his license had been expired, and he claims that that it had been. I guess it was like a year or two expired. Anyway, he claims that he had always gotten that medication from us before, so why the hell now, anyways, but, once we find something like that out, we have to, not refuse the medication. And anyway, of course he was not pleased with this, and he was yelling, and eventually yelling obscenities at everyone there, and including me, who had to ring him out, and I finally was like, what am I gonna do with this cursing, man? And I finally started saying, I have nothing to say about that.
Oh.
No, I have nothing to say about that. But you've given it to me before, and that bitch, and that bitch. No, I have nothing to say about that. and get him out of the store as soon as possible. Even though he's yelling a storm the whole way out. That's that has to do with de-escalation as well. Police are supposed to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, so there were like no security guards or anything there?
Right. Well, there might have been eventually if he had kept causing a scene, but no, we're the ones that have to deal with that. We're the line of defense. So that's something that I said over and over again, and that's something that I will say anytime someone tries to get me in that type of situation. Let's see. In Star Trek, that happens a lot. I was going to say Star Trek Voyager, Janeway is a pretty perfect example of this. She does she might roll her eyes privately, but she does keep her mouth shut when other people wouldn't be able to control their temper or would feel that their ego is bruised and they have to say something. She'll be like, okay, but let's try it this way instead. That's another thing. And when you close your mouth and figure something out, it's also regrouping. You can regroup and find a different way to go about it with the person. And sometimes that's a lot more effective because the other person has decided they're not going to listen to your first idea about it. They're not going to listen to the way you would normally go about it. So you have to close your mouth, regroup, and then say, okay, well, if it can't be that and it can't be this, what about this?
Well, yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I guarantee you, Picard or Kirk would never have these type of problems.
Well, they do actually, but yes, I get what you mean. But yeah, I mean, all the great starship captains have dealt with this at some point or another. I'm sure we could think of examples right now, but yeah, it's definitely it's what I love about Star Trek is it really shows sort of the human condition going forward into the future and how we're hopefully going to have a more diplomatic solution to a lot of these problems in the future. I really do believe that that's exactly what it's saying. Like, some people would say, well, it's showing that there's always going to be violence and there's always going to be corruption because all these species, there's a lot of problems between them. But almost always it's the diplomatic solution that wins out.
And as a corruption at CVS, they are denying people pharmaceuticals, and now these customers are going to get hooked on heroin. They're going to have to sell their bodies and do other stuff just because they don't have the medication. CVS is really responsible for this, and we need to hold these people accountable, including one Gabe Shamus.
Yeah, well, I have nothing to say about that.
That's what you'd say to Alex Jones?
Yeah, at that point, if you were to say something as ridiculous as that, yes, I would.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, anyway, so this, in a lot of ways, this is the new battleground. We also are seeing it in this election cycle. People have said different things in the past and then deny it, and that's when you lose a lot of ground. There's a reason that people lose ground when they're seen denying something that they've said before, because nowadays we have it on tape, and so that's actually that's a new way to bring someone down, is to show that they had said something before that they're now completely vehemently denying, and so it's about credibility as well. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Hillary and Donald. Yeah.
So yeah, they're both losing credibility. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. All right. It's like, what time you say you gotta be in at work today?
Yeah, we have. I think that this should only be about 45 minutes. We have 6 more minutes.
45 minutes? Okay, so, it's like 39 minutes, so, I guess we can get into the debate now, or, yeah.
Sure, yeah, but we only have a few minutes left.
Okay, so the debate, for Chew on This, the debate is, will Brock Lesnar, still have pay-per-view draw if he loses at UFC 200? And, because there's a lot riding on this. Because, one, Brock Lesnar is coming back for SummerSlam in August, for the WWE. Don't know yet who his opponent's going to be. Then, of course, there's the fact that he's on the cover of the new WWE 2K game that's coming out, WWE 2K17. And, I already saw the commercial for it, and he looked awesome in that commercial. By the way, yeah. By the way, if you pre-order the game, you can download Goldberg. Yeah. Okay. So, have Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar Part 2.
Oh, I see what you
mean. The rematch from WrestleMania 20. But I personally believe that if Brock Lesnar loses, his drawing power gone. I mean, it's gone. People. Because there's a lot of MMA fans that don't like pro wrestling, but they'll tune in to see if Brock Lesnar's there. When it's like, oh, it's Brock Lesnar? Oh, yeah, Brock Lesnar.
So you think that this really is his reputation riding on this?
Oh, yeah. Up until this point, when he came back to the WWE, he was rated a legitimate badass. Having been UFC champion, beating Randy Couture, Heath Herring, Frank Mir, Shane Carwin. He was a legitimate badass. And if he loses at UFC 200 to a great striker in Mark Hunt, I don't think WWE fans are going to be that tuned into him anymore.
Okay. So this is something we talked about before, like with Ronda, and there's like the idea of is it really all on the line when they're up for a fight or when they're defending the title, etc. The thing is, you can talk about WWE fans, you can talk about MMA fans. The thing is, to me, if they get other people talking, if they get more of the rest of the country talking, that has value in its own right. That's an inherent kind of value, that actually gets greater society to notice. That's really something. So I don't know if that's really if that's all going to be thrown out the window just because of losing this. I understand it's a high stakes decision, but
yeah. Plus, they put him on the cover of the video game. Of course.
Right. So, that is something. Would you say that was a risky move, or maybe too risky a move?
Oh, yeah, because that's, as my mom would say, you're putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
And I think WWE's sales for the video game might go down if he loses this, too. And, Vince McMahon, he's going to give him a talking to and stuff.
Right. But yeah, so I'm just saying, like, if it gets the rest of the culture talking, that's not something that as easily goes away. So I don't know if it's really gonna be, I don't know if I agree that it's just gonna be gone and all for naught if he loses. You know what I mean? Maybe you're saying that it's a different situation because there's not as much chance for a rematch, whereas Ronda's eyes are still on her because there's going to be a rematch at some point. But I think we do, if there is a chance for a rematch, we do give them the benefit of the doubt. At least I would think so.
Yeah,
Hope
I mean,
so.
we don't know. We don't know if Brock will come back to UFC after this, or if he'll still be with WWE. But it's all up in the air right now. But I mean, I'm not even picking a winner of that fight. That's a 50-50 toss up. Because they're both my guys too, and stuff. So we'll see where we go from there.
Right.
And that's it for our show. Ringside with Matt and Gabe debuts this Thursday. So make sure to check out our show tomorrow. And also go to youtube.com/BloodyKnucklesTV. Subscribe to both those shows.
Yep.
And for the first episode of Ringside with Matt and Gabe, we're going to be looking at Ali Frazier 3, The Thriller in Manila.
All right. Awesome.
Yep. And also today I'll be doing 2 blogs today on UFC 200. So make sure to check them out on our Facebook page.
Okay, great.
So from Beantown, New York Town, this is Beantown Beatdown. Matthew Burris.
Gabe Jamas.
Vios con Dios.